So, this business of antimicrobial resistance, why are we interested in it? One reason is that there's a report, it's a very good report, that says that it will by 2050 be killing more people than cancer. And it will cost the global economy more money than the current size of the global economy. So it's going to be a huge problem by 2050 unless it's tackled. Now, to tackle it, that's the rub, because we don't really have a way to do that. And we're waiting for that magic thing that will do it. And a lot of our strategy, I think, is about buying us a bit of extra time while that magic thing comes along. Some people might disagree, but I think that's our strategy. So what is antimicrobial resistance? Well, if you want to know what something is, go to the Daily Mail and find out what it isn't. Here's an article on the Daily Mail, antibiotic resistance soars, cases of gut bacteria not destroyed by drugs increased by 12,000% in 7 years. And further down the article, you find this. It talks about Dame Sally, who will be joining us later, and it says, health experts have previously warned of a catastrophic threat of people becoming resistant to antibiotics. So you now go, that's not what it is. It's not about you taking antibiotics and then them becoming not so effective to you personally. Because if we get that message across, the problem is you start getting articles like this that say, stop taking antibiotics when you feel better, because that's the way to go. And that's the wrong way to go. Because the problem is what happens then, antimicrobial resistance is about microbes, and let's talk about bacteria for a moment. So let's say bacteria becoming resistant to the drugs that we have to fight them. And the more we put those drugs out there, the more we let them get into the water supply, into the environment, into other things, into food stocks, then the greater the chance that the bugs will become resistant to them. Because, to put very simply, it's just an arms race against natural selection. If you have an infection and we give you a drug, the bugs that survive are the ones that are resistant to it. And then they don't have competition so much, and that's a problem. So, what's happening? What is antimicrobial resistance? It's more than antibiotics. It's about drugs and therapies that will combat other things. Viruses, fungi, and protozoa. So when there's a call announced for a $2 billion global antibiotic research fund, this is a great headline, but it's missing the viruses, the fungi, and the protozoa. The protozoa being the kind of things that cause malaria. So it's more than about antibiotics. And if we just produce new antibiotics, we'll never win. It's just an arms race. The bugs will always beat us. And what we've got to do is find other things that will buy us that time between now and 2050. And you know, calls for $2 billion funds are great, but a $1 billion UK fund for carbon capture and storage has just been cancelled. It was in the previous comprehensive spending review and the latest one, it's just been cancelled. So having calls and announcements doesn't give so much security. Okay, so what is antimicrobial resistance? A lot of you might think, a lot of you probably know, but if you're a newcomer to this, you might think, well, it's a hospital. This looks like a nice hospital, a nice clean hospital. Perhaps the problem is more a hospital like this that doesn't have so many resources. So the question is antimicrobial resistance really a developing world country problem? Sorry, someone's got to deal with a problem here. A developing world country that's being exported to the developed world because you've got conditions that are suboptimal in the third world. Well, not necessarily, because this is a farm, it's an intensive farm, and in the US, 70% of antibiotics are consumed by animals, not by people. They're not used in healthcare, they're used in antibiotics, and they're used at a subtherapeutic dose, a dose that isn't meant to cure any disease, just make the animals big and fat. So we're putting 70% of antibiotics into cows to eat them. It's insane. So the developing world might look at us in the developed world and say, this is a crazy strategy. And it's a subtherapeutic dose. It's the best conditions possible to develop resistance. Fish farms, poultry, swine, poultry, and what's the problem? Well, one of the problems is sewage. Because once you get a bug that's got resistance and you put it next to a bug that hasn't, it takes about 4 hours, 5 hours for the resistance to transfer between bugs. And if that first bug is an animal disease bug, and the second bug is a human disease bug, you've just transferred resistance from an animal bug to a human bug, if that makes sense. Sewage is a great way to do it. Put all the sewage together, soup, and see what happens. So, hospital problem. Livestock problem, especially livestock next to water. This photograph was not taken in the developing world. This was taken in the USA. Carcasses next to a water supply. And the fact that people have to use water of opportunity. Some people don't have clean water. And it's not simply a question of this in isolation. As we have climate change, as we have increasing population numbers, and as we have migration of people in large numbers, we're going to get new routes for transferring the genetic issue, but also the people. And when I say migration of people in large numbers, it's not just Syria and places like that we're talking about, it's this, it's air travel. It's a fantastic way of transferring stuff. You've got toilets, food preparation areas, and 200 people of completely unknown hygiene and past history. And you put them all together for 9 hours and fly them around the world. And then you put them in a place like this, where whatever they've got on their hands, and it might be a resistant bug from a cow, goes onto that rubber hand touch surface and can live there for a long time. Bill, how many hours? How long, Bill?
100 days.
100 days. So the next person comes, touches, picks it up, and we're transferring resistance between bugs. And it's not just a problem of travel or it's a problem, it's not a simple problem. Take the example of sepsis, which we call blood poisoning. In 2010, in England and Wales, it was responsible for 27% of intensive care admissions and 5.1% of all deaths. Now the guidelines require that intravenous antimicrobial therapy must be administered within 1 hour of recognising septic shock in someone. And that's because every 1 hour delay after that of an effective therapy decreases survival by 6%. So what are you going to do as a doctor? The guidelines say you've got an hour. You don't might even know what's causing this. Are you going to give them a broad spectrum, really top-notch, powerful antibiotic? The thing that we must hold in reserve for the worst possible case? Maybe. Because the guidelines don't give you much wriggle room. And the real nub is, it might not be caused by a bacteria. Now, I'm not a doctor. I can't say what situation they're in. But you can see the problem. The guidelines, in every instinct, says save this person, is pushing you down a route that may give you an antibiotic, may give them an antibiotic, which has no effect at all in treating the disease, because antibiotics are only effective against bacteria. This might be caused by something else, fungi, something else. Okay, and what's the result? This is an E. coli map. So this is the percentage of cases of resistance, and we can see that the green is less than 1%. The orange is not. The orange is 10 to 25%, and the yellow is 5 to 10%. So here we are in the yellow. This is 2009. Here we are in 2013. You can see the way this is going. Just brilliant. So, who are we? We're NAMRIP. This pie chart tells us where our number of members are in the university and hospital are distributed, and obviously there's a huge amount from medicine. There's also a huge amount from engineering, and large numbers from physical science, health science, hospital, social and human science, and mathematics, and natural and environmental sciences. And that's because we were set up in order to get people from different disciplines to work together. And a lot of this was because, almost all of it, was because we had a grant from the EPSRC to do this, which I'll get to in a minute. And that said, look, it follows the notion that many of us have, that we have to work across boundaries. If you If you were an engineer, you want to invent a bit of kit in order to get it out there, there is no point doing it without talking to the medic and finding out what the problem is, or the farmer, or somebody like that. And when you've got your bit of kit and tested it in the lab that it works, there is no point leaving it in the lab or publishing it in a paper. You've then got to get clinical trials, field trials, and then you've got to make a business of it, because no bit of kit will help anyone unless 10,000 of them are built and available. So it is about working across boundaries. We have income. We started, can I ask how many minutes I've got left? 2 minutes, good. We started with £50,000 from the University of Southampton, which is a nice pot of money from their University Strategic Research Group Fund. And more valuable than that, they gave us someone for admin support who is worth more than £50,000 many times over. And then we got a small amount of money from the Public Engagement Research Unit. With that, we then got this huge chunk of green money into the Engineering and Environment faculty from the EPSRC. That's the government-sponsored Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. That's bridging the gap there, and that paid for everyone here. You're all here free today because they paid for it, and they paid for a lot more. We then persuaded the university to note this grey amount of money in terms of studentships here, and that enabled our members to go out and win money. So far, all this money, the black, the green and the grey, it's distributed between many people. Then a couple of people got MRC, Medical Research Council money, just for their own specific research projects, but it is part of NAMRIP, but a NAMRIP, but it doesn't spread around for everyone. Same from the BDSRC and MRC, and we've currently got grants into the shaded hatched things to the NARC, National Environment Research Council, from the Natural Environment Science faculty and from the Social and Human Science faculty. So we're building up that money. We started with £50,000, it's currently £2.5 million, plus EU cost action that I haven't put in there, the bill's just run because I don't know how much it is, but he does, and money from the NIHR, which again we don't know how much that is. So we're growing in money, but we're using that tactically to get collaborations. We're not the only network doing this. There are about 10 other across the country, funded by, initially by EXERT, but now getting money from other research councils. And we have some of those representatives here, as is at the bottom, and they're extremely welcome. Okay.